Good evening. Welcome to BBuzz English section. I'm Imtiaz Patel Varadiawala. I'm the host of the English section, particularly in this program called Our Health. BBuzz is brought to you by the community media. And as the name suggests, it is the channel of communication, of interaction for the community. As a community, we share certain common concerns and issues. We face certain problems. We face certain challenges. We are interested in common issues, but at the same time, we are interested in finding common solutions as well. BBuzz aims to give voice to issues. We will discuss these issues in details. We will encourage our listeners, our viewers, to participate in the discussion at the same time. And through BBuzz, we would like to create and we would like to establish what we call a forum where we can discuss challenging, interesting, innovative, creative, sensitive issues, ideas and topics. One of the ideas is to increase awareness, is to provide the relevant information and to empower community members with the information. One very important feature of the BBuzz English section is interviews and the discussion forum. We will bring prominent people, we will bring community representatives, we will bring expertise and professionals from respective areas, we will bring social activists, community representatives, and we would interview them on different subjects. And I hope and I'm confident that as a result of our intellectual, our mutual discussion on respective topics, we would be able to come up with certain solutions, if not then certain ideas, which would help us as an individual and as a community in general. Today, the topic we have selected is called substance misuse in Asian communities. On behalf of BBuzz Community Media Centre Bolton UK, I would like to welcome you to this program. We are conscious that the subject itself, which is substance misuse in Asian community, is up to some extent a taboo subject, a very sensitive subject, a very touchy subject at the same time. But equally, we feel that it is important that having all those connotations with the subject, if we can discuss this with the experts, with the people, individuals who have got knowledge on the subject, that would hope that we would come up with some kind of solutions at the end of the day. Substance abuse covers misuse of a range of mind-altering substances. It can have a severe impact on your functioning as well as your physical health. Substance abuse or substance misuse is defined as the continued misuse of any mind-altering substance that severely affects person's physical and mental, social situations and responsibility. We are very fortunate to have our guest in the studio, and I would like to welcome him on behalf of you as our listeners, as our viewer, and also on behalf of BBuzz channel, Community Media Centre UK Bolton. Our guest is Maulana Hassan Sidat. Now, Maulana Hassan Sidat has been working in substance misuse field for over the last 12 years with a very special interest in BME community, especially Muslim community. He has offered his services to Lancashire Council of Mosques and other mainstream organizations, including community organizations. He has trained more than 25 imams and hundreds of children and parents to help to deal with them when it comes to drug issues or drug-related issues. One of the main aims for Maulana Hassan is to help raise awareness about drug abuse in Asian communities and challenges long-standing myths related to drug subject. He has been praised by the Home Office for his passion and commitment to tackle drug misuse in the Asian community. He was nominated for the National Drug Worker of the Year Award in the Government's Tackling Drug Challenge Changing Lives Award as well. His work has been recognized by many individuals and many organizations. And as I said, that it is a very tough subject, it is a very difficult and challenging subject, but we have got Maulana Hassan here, who not only brings professional experience, knowledge in this field, but he also brings faith elements, faith perspective, which has helped him to really make drug-related issues awareness within the Asian community. Maulana Hassan, welcome to BBUS.
Thank you, yes.
My first question I would like to ask you on behalf of BBUS and behalf of our listeners and viewers is, can you please elaborate on what is substance misuse?
Yes, that's a very serious question you're asking. If you want my training, I'll take a whole day, but unfortunately I don't have all day today. But in a nutshell, I think you've already described this very frequently. Substance misuse, any substance, anything someone uses, would it be from tobacco, to alcohol, to shisha, to cannabis, any substance, when a person uses or abuses and makes them think or body thinks differently, it's substance misuse. Now, simple example, if you take cannabis, it alters the way a person's perception is, the way he feels, the way he wants to do things. Or any substance a person takes, it affects his body or mind. That's a substance.
Okay.
Now, there's two elements to it to bear in mind as well. Substance abuse and substance use. Because sometimes people, when they talk about, especially when you're talking with young generation, he said they have to understand the difference. And the difference is, everyone uses substances. For example, paracetamol. We all use it. We just had a substance there called caffeine. So everyone uses a substance.
Okay.
But when it becomes a problem is when someone's misusing it. And like you described in your introduction, that it becomes harmful to themselves, to families, and loved ones and carers. And that becomes the issue.
I think that's, I'm so happy, Maulana Hassan, that you have clarified the difference between substance misuse and substance use, which is quite useful, and I'm sure that I'm going to bring that topic again. But having said that, now, so then what leads to substance misuse? I mean, do we have any findings? Do you have any observations in terms of individuals, people's, or community behaviors that what leads to substance misuse?
I think there's two issues here to bear in mind. A lot of times people always say one person stops using a substance because of a drug addict. It's not necessarily the case. If it was the case, then we will have so many people on heroin. Now, there's two issues we have to bear in mind here. Number one, why a person might choose a substance or use drugs. If you're looking at younger generation, unfortunately today living in a society, they've been pulled from different direction, peer pressure from colleagues, friends, even our problems at homes and in society. And our children, our youngsters are at a moment in a very tough situation where they have to live in a double identity, where they live at home, school, and so much pressure is going on in their life. And sometimes a person might choose a drug. For example, classic example for a young person would be cannabis. They'll start off with cannabis, not realizing what's it doing to that person. It might be because of pressure, or peer belonging because of friends are doing it. And sometimes, which a lot of parents misunderstand, is a pressure from home or school or college. They might be getting abused, they might be getting bullied, and they can't open up and talk to someone. And to hide their problem, they might be starting using cannabis. Now, what normally happens when a person starts using cannabis, they use it so much that they so eventually become addicted to cannabis. And when it comes to that stage, sometimes they won't mention it to their parents, or they haven't mentioned it to anyone, and they keep it hidden. And the more you keep it hidden, obviously it's going to escalate. And because if it escalates, by the time they get support, it's either they're using so much, or either they've not admitted they've got an issue. So I think when you're looking at the problem, there are so many factors behind it. Would there be pressure at home, pressure at school, fear of belonging with friends? And we need to, as a society, to look at this issue. How could we deal with this problem? Because when a drug problem occurs, what we try to do as a society is look at the problem. So telling a person who's using cannabis, do not use cannabis, yes, but what's the solution? And that's what we're lacking. So if a person is saying, yes, I'm using cannabis, we need to find out, okay, if you use cannabis, what was the reason behind it? Was there a problem behind it? Because we need to find that problem. Cannabis solution is, you can't just stop cannabis. You need to use other factors and help the person to stop using. Its only way is look at all the solution, all the factors.
So what I have gathered, Maulana Hassan, is that an individual who comes under some kind of pressure, which is either is a mild, medium or a severe pressure, and that pressure could be to do with the social life, could be to do with family life, could be to do with education, finance, friendship, relationship, you name it, okay? But may I just extend that question to the length that, generally speaking, we are all under some kind of pressure. If you think about it, I as an individual, I'm constantly under pressure because of work or because of whatever reasons. But is that the only way, or is that one of the way, or why then, compared to other people, those who take this route, which is substance misuse?
Okay, that's very simple. I'll give you an example on that one. When a human being, if you look at a young person, if you look at research, we find a human being's brain is not developed until age 25. It's still in the process of development. And from age 18 to 25 is the main age when the brain is developing, especially some of the chemicals in the brain are either taken out, taken in. And when this is happening, young people are more at risk takers than adults. Now, a lot of times you'll see a young person might drive 100 miles per hour because they are risk takers. Whereas young adults, by the time we put our belt on, they've already disappeared. Because we understand what could be the downside of driving fast. Whereas young person will look at now what's going to happen. We'll look at the solution later on. It's like if you like in school education, especially when it came to drug education, if you tell a young person that if you use cannabis, eventually you'll have mental health problem, argumentally. Or you might have this problem. If you use alcohol, you'll have liver problem, kidney problem, or whatever drugs. And you say long term this could happen. The young person might turn around and say, that's when I get 50. That could happen to me anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
What's going to happen to me today, I need to know. So because the young person, their understanding is little, what's going to happen now. So now the issue is why some do and some don't. There are a lot of issues behind that. Number one is the pressure they're getting from their colleagues or from their upbringing. It's the pressure from parents. Now, until the parents do not open up with the children, and the parenting style is not up to date, these are the pressures the young people go to. So you might have two young persons going to the same school, but if one person's either upbringing might be different, it might be, the pressures from friends would be different. That could be a possibility for that person using drugs. And also, there are numerous reasons why a person, for example, someone losing weight might start using drugs. So it might be two same people again, but one person will lose weight, they'll use drugs. So the fact that we can't just predict when a person will decide to use drugs, we need to know if a person is using, what can we do?
Okay. Can I again remind our listeners and viewers that you are watching Bebuzz. In our health program, we are discussing substance misuse with Maulana Hassan Siddharth. If you would like to interact with us, then you should visit our Bebuzz channel on your YouTube. You can go to our website, which is www.britasianbuzz.com. Our contact number is 01204, that is 435 825. Live radio time is 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. You can also give us your questions, concerns, feedbacks, reservations, or if you would like to make any statements relevant to our program, then you can also send that messages through Facebook, Twitter and WhatsApp. We are in conversation with Maulana Hassan Siddar on BBuzz Community Media Center, UK. Maulana Hassan, what sort of signs one should look out if a person is affected by substance misuse?
Right, yes, before I answer that question, over the years I've been doing this training and I'm very hesitant of mentioning that, because the reason is sometimes when you mention the signs, a teenager could have all the signs as well. And when our parents will come up and say, Hassan, does my son use or my daughter use a substance? Can you tell? It's your child, can you not tell? Signs and symptoms are their possibility, not 100%. So that is so important to remember. However, there are some signs to bear in mind. For example, losing weight, or maybe one is missing out from the home, or maybe stealing, or maybe eyes getting red, or maybe they're all some physical and social signs. But they could be misleading for something else as well. Simple example, I had a client years ago where a parent said the son was using a substance. Now the person came on my course, and on my course I mentioned about stealing. And the child was stealing from the mom and parents. And they got a bit worried, obviously, as a parent, and they contacted me. When I went down to see the person, you could see the world was happening in the house, parents on one side and the child on the other side. Eventually, I had to break him away, started speaking to the child, and the child said, yes, I'm stealing, I'm not going to deny. But I'm stealing not because of drugs. I'm stealing because I'm gambling. So you can see, when I went to the parents, I mentioned this. Yes, he's stealing, but he's gambling. Now, see the pressure the child went to for no reason. So yes, there are issues when there are signs, but most importantly, I believe, for a parent is the communication. If your communications are open, the child will be more approachable. And the biggest survey we find out when it comes to children and not speaking to parents is parents, children will always say, when I approach this subject to my parents, there's two problems. Number one, my parents do not understand what drug is. And number two, if they do find out, they lose it. And how could we then speak to our parents? So my advice for parents, number one, most important, learn something about this. You learn about something doesn't mean your child is using. It's just educating yourself. And second thing, if a child does come up with this problem, do not blame yourself. And most importantly, do not blame your child or anyone else. It's happened, now let's deal with the issue. Because what we'll do as a society is we'll blame ourselves, then we'll blame the neighbor's neighbor, and the whole world after that. But that's not the solution. We need to help the child now. Our next step is, let's get something doing.
I think our guest has raised a quite important and interesting point here, that communication with your child, with your children, with your family members is absolutely very, very important. Because through the communication you would able to establish at least some kind of ground for conversation, so then we would be able to pick up if there is an issue, then as a family we can sort it out. And I think there is nothing to be embarrassed about it if the family or if an individual is affected or infected with these kind of sensitive issues. We have services, we have specialists out there who would be more than happy to offer their advice and help to you in order to really get back to your normality. Maulana Hassan, the next question comes to my mind is, how does substance misuse and addiction affects your well-being?
It does in all sorts of ways. Cannabis is a classic one. I'm mentioning cannabis is because a lot of our community, especially Muslim young children, even some others as well, use cannabis. Now, cannabis especially does trigger mental health for some people. And the one thing you bear in mind, our Asian community have unfortunately bad records when it comes to mental health issues. So, if cannabis is leading factor, it might trigger to mental health. Also, one of the big problems I see within our community is shisha. Shisha, if you have to do research behind shisha, one session of shisha is equal to 200 volume of cigarette. The smoke of volume of one shisha is equal to 200 cigarettes.
Not many people are aware of this.
No.
And there's a myth out there that shisha is less harmful than any other mainstream smoking.
You know why that myth came back? It goes back to Indian people. We the myth of it. How we all started off originally, you'll be surprised. 500 years ago in India, we had a huge smoking problem. And at the time, the physicians and doctors decided we have to do something about this problem. So they created this shisha, where they thought they have this bottle, you put water in it, and you purify the tobacco, and it will become cleaner. But obviously, 500 years ago, that was the best evidence. They never had a research done. The story from from India, it moved on to Saudi and Arab countries. Now that myth kept on going on, where if you put water, if you put tobacco on top, it'll clean it. There's no such thing. There is no evidence that it becomes clean. There's two things bear in mind. A person might go to a shisha bar, and a person will say, yes, the shisha, the mussel, whatever they put it on top, is nicotine free. Some are nicotine free, not all of them. However, even argumentally, let's take the argument this nicotine free. You still have to put coal in. You can't get away with that. You have to. And the carbon dioxide which comes out from coal is going to be more harmful than cigarette itself. So you got your shisha, then you got your cannabis. The other thing which we see a lot within the Asian community is anabolic steroids. A lot of young people, especially thinking, I'll go to a gym and I'll become nice and fit. And Indian people are famous to get shortcuts for everything. And we look for that shortcut, how could I become nice looking? But unfortunately, that shortcut has a cost to it. The cost is a lot. In fact, you have mood swings. It's a problem because your blood pressure could retrain, so you need to get your blood pressure checked out. There's also an element to it that if you're buying steroids from someone else, it might not be pure, so it might be mixed, so it's doing more harm to yourself. Biggest problem with steroids is mood swings. So if an adult's using it, you can imagine you could have rage, which is very known in steroid users, like going home, or maybe domestic violence could be an issue with children, families, family members. So these are the issues. So your main ones are cannabis, your main ones are shisha, steroids. These are the main ones which could affect. But bear in mind, there are short-term effects to all the drugs, and there are long-term effects as well. The other thing I'll mention this, and I'm a bit hesitant to mention this for a lot of parents because I'm going to show what's going to happen next. One of the things we are seeing now is legal highs, which are known as that you could buy drugs from internet, which are known as legal highs. You could buy these drugs from local head shops where you buy shishas and bongs and so on. Unfortunately, we have quite a number of people buying these drugs. The biggest problem with these all new drugs is no one, like myself, I've been in this field for the last 12 years, I couldn't even tell you what could go wrong with them. Unfortunately, today's young people are becoming guinea pigs for the next generation. No one knows what's inside them. No one knows what it could do to you. But downside, the biggest problem is anyone could get, as long as you have a PayPal, as long as you got a credit card, you could go on internet, just type in legal highs, and unfortunately these drugs could deliver to your house. And the biggest worry is this: every week we get one new drugs coming in Europe, and no one could keep up how many we're going to come in.
So, as far as the legal high is concerned, where does the legislation actually comes into it?
It's a very grey area, unfortunately. The problem is, all the drugs legal highs, the people who are manufacturing, they try to look for loopholes. And because of that, it's very difficult to keep up. And the manufacturer is already one step ahead than the government. So even the government will ban certain substances. The guys who are manufacturing it, they're already making something else on its place. So you can imagine what normally happens, how it happens is, a person might decide, okay, I've got this legal high I want to produce. They might go somewhere in Asia, they'll ask them, these are the chemicals, mix them up and send it back to me. Now the guys in Asia, they won't know what they're mixing. They'll just mix whatever, they'll send it over. The guy who's told them to make them won't have any clue as well. So basically, downside is, the person who are using it, they're using something, they have no clue what they're using.
Oh, I see. Now, you have been in this field for a long time. I mean, just over 12 years. I think that's a long time to have worked in this field. So, what is your reflection overall, all these years in substance misuse field?
I could still remember, I think it was my second year or third year when I started doing this work. At the time I was with LCM. And I was invited to one of the schools. And that school had majority of Asian people. And surprisingly, I was called because not to train the children. The reason I was called down was a child aged 10 years old was selling cannabis in school. Asian young lad. And since that day, I think I've seen all sorts. And that was a shocker, you know, when you're just in the field. And over 12 years, I've seen things happening, unfortunately, in the society. I dreaded to say this, but as a society, if we don't get up ourselves and do something, and think it's just going to go away, we live in the cuckoo land, I think. We have to get up as a society, be realistic and talk about it. Those days are gone, where we should brush it under the carpet and think it'll go away. It's not going to go away. It's here to stay. We have to be reality and wake up with the reality. We spend so much money on all sorts of things. As a society, we spend millions on other stuff. As a society, we can't just do one thing, look after our future generation. We're talking about our future generation health. We're talking about future generations family. And we spend on this. So if as a society we put something on this and put our effort, just saving one child, we're saving the whole generation. Just imagine, I've seen parents coming to me crying because they've tried everything. And you know, the problem I see is our society pushing more back. If someone comes to you for help, they need help. As a society, we should put our shoulder to them and say, look, yes, we will do something as well. It's a societal role. We have to, the only way to solve this problem is as a society we still need to solve it. It's not an individual problem. And someone might say to me, well, my son doesn't use it. My daughter doesn't use drugs. Why should I care? In effect, indirectly, every single of your listener is affected. Why? If a substance, someone's using substance, for example, in a certain area, the house, it becomes a deprived area. It costs to the health, it costs to the police, it costs to the business. That, in effect, is affecting us as well. So, like it or not, is our problem. And like it or not, we have to do something about it. And if we don't do something now, I hope it doesn't, but we will see our society in a few years' time, and we'll ready and we'll say, let's do something now. We're still early days. We've got a lot of opportunity to do something about it. Let's get up and do something about it.
Right. I've got some statistics here because one of the questions when you're talking about taboo subjects, whether it's to do with mental health, whether it's to do with domestic violence, whether it's to do with sexual health, and including substance misuse, quite often when we talk about this, people normally come and say, oh well, do we have any statistics or do we have any kind of research figures to support what you are doing? Otherwise, normally they would feel pretty uncomfortable with the whole topic. So I have just gathered some statistics here that for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, that drug misuse, according to a Health and Social Care Information Center report published in November 2013, which is pretty recent. Statistics on drug misuse England 2013 report says that around 1 in 12, that is 8.2% adults aged 16 to 59 had taken an illicit drug in the last year. Now just imagine that if you add that numbers, it comes to about around 2.7 million people have been engaged in what we call the illicit drug misuse activities. Further on, in a similar Home Office report, it was stipulated that the most commonly used drug ever used were cannabis, that is about 30%, amphetamines, which is about 10.4%, and poppers. There's another name which I find it a bit difficult to pronounce because not often that I use that word, but the poppers also 9.3. Now this is the general statistics, ladies and gentlemen, which we have received from the government department. Within this, Maulana Hassan, it indicates that the drug misuse amongst the Asian community is reasonably small, but the cases of drug addiction is rising day by day. What is your opinion on that?
I think the problem is, what's happened in our society, if it's a drug problem, we tend not to go to a drug treatment. The statistic you mentioned, the reason those statistics are showing up is these are the guys who might go to a service, or in the survey they mentioned. Now, very often, Asian community will not go to a service, number one, or they will not mention they got a problem. So that's why, statistically, it's very, very difficult to find out how many Asian people have got a drug issue or alcohol issue. I mentioned alcohol because alcohol is a big problem as well within the Asian communities. So we got the alcohol issue as well, and we've got drug issues as well. Now, regardless statistic, we know as a society we live in. We know people, we know our community, and we know the problem. Now, like I said early on, we don't need statistic. We need our community to do something about it. Even if it's only 1% of the community using it, it's still 1%. And that 1%, family, children, are affected. So, statistically, I always look at even 1%, one person we could help, we've helped the whole society.
Absolutely. And with that note, why you have developed special interests in Muslim community when it comes to substance misuse?
I think one of the main reasons, obviously, is my background, obviously, like you mentioned. But for me, previously working with Lancashire Council of Mosques, I think it's so important that we take this issue from our Muslims and minarets, that the imams and the community leaders talk about this. We talk about everything else, and we sort of sometimes push this on the carpet. I think it's about time, as a community, we stand up and be brave and be honest about it and say, look, we've got this problem and we need to deal with it. And if as a Muslim community we start doing this, and especially the imams take some responsibility, the community members take some responsibility, inshallah the time will come that we could help our people. You're talking about statistics. We know for a fact, on a weekend, 500,000 young people use drugs. It won't statistic, there's so many out there. But the issue is, what are we doing about it? It comes to that. And we have to do something about it as a society.
So do you reckon that the individual approach and collective approach in terms of the respective imams from the respective mosques, the respective community leaders, community representatives, political figures within the Asian communities, other faith leaders, local NHS, local services, and everybody should work together in a collective way in order to come up with positive solutions, creative solutions, which could save our generations. That's basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think what we'll have to bear in mind, that when a person is using substances, as a society, we should not draw them back. We should draw them closer.
So we shouldn't be stigmatized, or we shouldn't be actually treating them or looking at them from the negative point of view.
One thing I mentioned as well, while you talk about treatment, I always recommend not to send them abroad. My previous experience, as you said, what I reflected, if you had a young person who was using arguably cannabis, and the parents decide, all right, I'll send him India or Pakistan. Unfortunately, when that person comes back, they might come back with a bigger problem. Because just imagine if you send a child to India and grandparents are looking after the grandchild, they'll love the grandchild. They're going to spoil them more. And they've got more money there. So the issue is they're going to come back with more problems. And when they come back here, they come back in the same environment. So that's not going to help. what we need to do is, someone's got a problem, we've got excellent services throughout UK. In Bolton, in Blackburn, we've got one of the best services here. And they're all free. So use these services and get help from them. Because you need aftercare service. India we might get a treatment, we won't get aftercare. And most important in this treatment journey, you need the aftercare, which is so important.
I think to conclude our program, you have partly answered my question, Maulana Hassan, that what sort of support mechanism out there, and if someone needs support and help, and what sort of messages you would like to convey to our listeners and to our viewers?
I think most importantly, if someone's got concern, if the parents, if it's the children, if the husband, wife, anyone using a substance, every local area has got drug treatment. If they just go on websites, just type in the local area and type in drug treatment services, it'll come up. It just needs that one push to go in. And hopefully that one push goes in, everything should be, all the supports are there. If you still feel you can't go to the drug treatment, you can also visit your GP. They're one of the resources where they could refer on to, or why if they could phone the your centre here, and maybe I'll leave some contact details later on where you could contact me as well.
That's very, very useful. On behalf of BBuzz channel, our viewers and listeners, we would like to thank Maulana Hassan Sidat for giving us and providing us with so much useful information around what we call, or what I at least call, is a tough subject. But he has handled the whole conversation and subject very nicely. And as Maulana Hassan suggested, that if you would like to find out more about it, or if you have got any questions or any queries, you can call us into our studio number, which is 01204 435 825, and we will try to get back to you with the answer if we have. If not, then we would certainly refer your questions to the right agency. So Maulana Hassan, thank you very much on behalf of BBuzz channel. My name is Imtiaz Patel Varadiawala. I am the host of this program called Our Health, and today we have discussed the topic called substance misuse in Asian community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm sure that in the near future we would bring and invite another scholars, another speakers with another interesting topic. Till then, you look after yourself. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.